Okay, now you can hear me, right?
Check 1, 2. This is just a test. Check, check. Is audio on Facebook? Check 1, 2. We're just testing here. Check. Hello, hello. Can you hear audio, those of you on Facebook?
testing. 1, 2, 3, testing. Testing, 1, 2, 3. We ready to go? Sorry, everyone. Please bear with us. We're trying to get all this technical stuff set up. Okay, welcome everyone to Lemoore City Council regular session for August 7th, 2018. Thank you all for your patience. We're a little out of sorts here because of the move, but we'll get through this. So at this time, I'll call the meeting to order, and if you would, please stand for the invocation.
Thank you, Lord, for every person in this place. We invite you, Holy Spirit, into this meeting. We ask you for your guidance. We ask you for your peace. Lord God, you were with Moses and you were with Aaron's mouth. Lord God, as they spoke to Egypt, you gave them the exact words to articulate, to speak your heart. Father God, I ask that you do this tonight, that you would be with our council's mouth, that you would give them the exact words to speak. And Lord, that you would give them your heart, that you would download into them, Lord God, what you would have them to do. And I pray for the people behind me, Lord, those that are going to step up to this podium, those that are going to speak, that you would be with their mouths, Father God, and that you would guide their speech. There are such heavy hearts in here today. And I pray, Father God, that you would move, Lord God, in a way that glorifies you. Lord God, this city belongs to you. Every person in this place belongs to you. I pray that you would move in this city according to your will, according to your way, Lord God. I pray, Lord Jesus, for our mayor. I ask that you would bless him. I pray for every council member upon this panel, that you would bless them.
business tonight. At this time, this is the time where we will approve the agenda. Council members, are there any additions and or deletions to the agenda as it is written? Okay, seeing none, we will move forward with the agenda as it is written. This is the time that we have for public comment. The city attorney just reminded me we had closed session. We had several items at 5:30, but there's nothing. So we'll go ahead and move on to public comment. This time is reserved for members of the audience to address the council on items of interest that are not on the agenda tonight and are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. Recommended that speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes each, and it is requested that their comments be made during this period on items that will be on the agenda. Council is prohibited by law from taking any action on matters discussed that are not on the agenda. Prior to addressing the council, any handouts for council will be provided to the city clerk for distribution to council and appropriate staff. So I do have one card from Mr. Tom Reed for public comment.
Last council meeting, the item was brought forward for a public hearing and possible vote for it to be placed on the November ballot. After comments from the public and much discussion by the board, Councilmember Chittister made a motion to approve the item, but at an increase of only 1/2. And a second to a motion implies that you agree with the motion. So you, Mayor Madrigal, for the only time I can remember during the years of my attendance at council meetings, the mayor either made or seconded a motion. Councilmember Chittister voted aye, followed by 3 no votes. Then you, Mayor Madrigal, a few seconds after offering a second on the motion, voted no, the fastest flip-flop I have ever seen. But at least 3 of you will be able to campaign that you voted no on a city tax increase, even though it was placed on the agenda requested by the council. And Mayor Madrigal, like the politician that ran for a national office, you will be able to campaign that you actually voted for it before you voted against it, which leaves only Councilmember Chittister. It seems as though you have been hung out to dry. You were the only one who was able to look past the modest protests from this podium during the previous council meeting and offer to proceed, albeit at a reduced percentage. For that, I commend you for your resoluteness. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to make a comment at this time? You don't have to have a card here to come forward at this time. Seeing none, we will move to, oh, I'm sorry, come forward, sir.
Good evening. My name is Jordan Fox. I am Parr Avenue here in Lemoore. I speak tonight as a concerned and frustrated citizen of Lemoore. Never has our town seen the drama from the council. In light of that, I would like to ask a council member to do the honorable thing and resign. Since day one, her partisanship has been on full display, from insisting on her business cards being printed at only a union shop to making party affiliation your first and only prerequisite for walking precincts to get out and out of touch mayor. Which, looking at the chamber tonight, he doesn't seem to be very out of touch when he called for your censure. Your lack of professionalism has also been on full display, from vulgar curse words on social media to calling constituents dingbats on social media to calling those that signed the recall notice racist and misogynist. This type of conduct is unbecoming of an elected official. You were elected by all of the citizens from Lemoore, not just a portion of the town. I humbly ask that for the first time since you were elected, that you represent all of Lemoore and not just special entrants. Please do the honorable thing and resign. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sandy Salyer, and I reside at 1040 Temple Court in Lemoore. I have lived in Lemoore for over 36 years. I call this my home. I love it, and I'm very proud of it. And I've never had to come to the council in the manner in which I'm coming this evening. But for months, I've watched, listened, and read Councilmember Blair's insults, falsehoods, accusations, foul language, and racist and threatening remarks towards her constituents, public servants, fellow council members, city employees, prospective businesses, etc. But today I've made the decision to no longer stay silent. Councilmember Blair has disgraced the office that she holds. It's a deep disappointment. She represents. Although I live in her district, I can, with conviction and with my heart and soul, say that she does not represent me or the values that I was raised with, nor those that I've instilled in my family. I have been blocked from Council Blair's social media, personal media, but in the past few days I've viewed her council page and I've yet to see one thing that is constructive or pertinent to the city issues at hand. In my opinion, Council Blair is a detriment to the city and a lawsuit waiting to happen. It is time for Councilmember Blair to take a hard look at what her personal issues are, step down from the council before she causes any more embarrassment to the city, herself, and her family. No one knows the trials and tributes that people have gone through in their life. I have had many, but I do not consider myself a victim. I am a survivor, and I'm in no way marginalized. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to say that we do have an agenda item later on that is in regard to a censure of a particular council member. So if you do want to make public comment on that matter, you should probably wait. I will just ask that you wait, please, that we do it at the proper time. Is there anyone that would like to speak on matters that are not on the agenda tonight?
Amy Ward, CEO, Lemoore Chamber of Commerce. I come here today for several reasons. First, I would like to thank the city. Last week, I had the pleasure of walking downtown and talking to business owners with Nathan and Michelle and Amanda. We got a lot of really good feedback and a lot of happy business owners to see that the city is getting out there and finding out their opinions on things. So I really appreciate that. I think that's what we need in this community, and we need all the positivity we can get. On the other side, I would also like to thank the EDC. They also, John Lane, this past week walked with me several different locations within the city, several business owners talking about what the EDC does, what we do, what the city can do to help them. In light of everything that's going on, I truly believe that we need to be focusing on the positive things as well. So having different organizations come together and share their resources is really exciting for me to see. So I thank the city for that, and I thank the EDC for that. I would like to invite council and city staff to our mega mixer next Wednesday at the Hilton. From 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., we're doing a Kings County Mega Mixer. It's the first time we've ever done something so that's encompassed so many different organizations. We have the Hanford Chamber, the Lemoore Chamber, the Corcoran Chamber, Tulare Kings Hispanic Chamber, Kings County Farm Bureau, and the Kings County Young Professionals. So I think when we talk about a larger scale of what the city needs, we also need to recognize that we have partners within the county that we can lean on. So I hope that we will see you there. We have a ribbon cutting tomorrow and another one on Friday. So we got a lot going on. Hope to see you there.
Thank you.
My name is Rich Tuman. I'd like a little clarification though, because I know what's on the agenda is the censure part later. We have other stuff that is pertinent to the city that is not part of the censure, but part of our belief and what we would like to move forward on. So would you like that to wait till later, or was that something you would like to hear now?
Go ahead now.
Okay. First of all, my name is Rich Tuman. I've been a citizen of Lemoore for over 40 years. I first started out the gate, I want to read a letter from a spouse of a Lemoore police officer. For some time now, we have watched the Councilwoman Blair belittle and marginalize our beliefs, those who have disagreed with her. If you spoke against her, you were a racist or a sexist. If you were older, then you were simply labeled out of touch. Just look at her Facebook page, social media. You can see that the hatred that spews towards anyone that disagrees with her or political beliefs. Ms. Blair claims to stand for the people, for those less fortunate or struggling in society. But in reality, she stands for herself and those who believe like her. She has questioned the integrity of our police chief and our police department without cause and proven to be dishonest in her claim of harassment by Lemoore Police Department. Recently, she questioned the integrity of both the city manager and the chief of police during a city council meeting. This was improper, inappropriate, and uncalled for. The citizens are tired of being represented by someone who cares only for herself and cannot act in the best interest of the citizens of Lemoore. Lemoore is a tight-knit community. We support our law enforcement, our police chief, who has earned his position and is well respected, along with our mayor, city manager, and other council members. Mrs. Blair's behavior has been unbecoming and has cast a shadow over the city of Lemoore. Okay, that was a letter that was given me to read up here tonight. I'm going to start real quickly because I don't want to be, at this point, I'm going to give you a little bit of qualifications why I think that I have a right to be up here, and that so I don't get dismissed later in some sort of post. I've been here for 40 years. My family's been in this area. I'm on our third generation of kids in the school district in this area. I've lived at 8 different locations in Lemoore. One in district currently would be District E, and I have friends in that district right now. We have watched over time some things and some people talk about values of Lemoore. I grew up in the values of Lemoore here. And what is being talked about, what we are looking at as a community, is saying that we're tired of somebody telling us what our values of Lemoore are, okay? Our values here in Lemoore is a community that comes together, works together. I had to deal over the period of my lifetime with 2 businesses that I owned here in Lemoore, as well as other organizations that I was president of. I had to deal with the city council members on many occasions. We not always agreed. A lot of times we disagreed, but the point that we could both put our opinions out on a table, listen to one another, and come to a joint mutual agreement that the best thing for Lemoore would be was always worked out. That's not the case anymore. Now, if you disagree, you are labeled as a racist, which that's a whole nother conversation that I would like to take up, because that is out of hand to somebody be labeled a racist just because you can spew it out. And if you're a city council member and you blurt that out without knowing the person across from you, somebody asked me the question, what do I think of this council member? I don't know the city council member personally. I can't judge what that council member is, but I can judge the actions of that council member. And that's what I'm doing tonight. That council member has created something that this community, I went down to the city. I was done. I went down to the city and found out that I wasn't the only one. We have put together a recall effort because this city is going to take a stand. We put a recall effort together. We've all been hit with obstructions along the way. Signatures are being had. This will be followed through. This is going through. This is to you city council members to do what you need to do. The citizens of Lemoore is going to do what they need to do. And at this time, our values are in question, so the people are going to rise up and show the council what our values are. So we are now letting you know that there's a recall effort in place. It will happen. We was hoping to do it with little to none expense to the city, but we believe over the time that we have remaining that it's well financially in our best interest to continue this effort. So we will continue this effort. Thank you for letting me talk.
Anyone else with public comment? Okay, we will move on to the next item, which is department and city manager reports. Mr. Olson.
Test. Good evening, Mayor and council members. First up tonight is Frank Rivera.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. I have some promising news report. As you will remember, Council allowed the city to move forward with a pilot program. This program is being conducted at the wastewater plant, where we have some technology that is transforming wastewater into possible tertiary water that we can use at our golf course or other similar, facilities. So far, the data, again, has been promising. I mean, you can visually go out to the wastewater plant and notice that the water coming up the aerators are pretty clear. So there'll be more results by the end of the week. But again, your council is welcome to go out anytime. The project manager will be back next week. He can answer any questions you might have, but so far it's good news. I just wanted to share that with you. Okay.
Thank you, Frank. I might add, if you do choose to go out there, you might call ahead, because there's certain parts of the day we get little kind of like gnats out there, and you don't want to be there when they're there. Just saying. Next up is Daryl Smith.
Good evening, council members. 2 items to report tonight, and both items. Oh, this one. It's not made for 6:3, so. Is that better? Better. So 2 things that I'd like to report out that shows how incredible our community is. It showcases our community and the efforts that they bring together when they are believing in an event. The first event took place on July 28th in conjunction with CrossFit Lemoore, and a Lemoore police officer, Kevin Kurtz, organized an event for a colleague of mine, Police Chief Hanford Police Chief Parker Sever, who has cancer. And I can tell you that right now the prognosis is great, and he's been through a lot, he and his family. And through that event, many people came from our community, our law enforcement community, and the CrossFit community. And they had an event where you showed up. If you were into CrossFit, you paid $20 to pay tribute to a great man and a great family, and more importantly, to raise funds for his efforts along the way as he and his family fight that disease that is cancer that affects every one of us in this room, have been affected by that at some point in time. So big shout out to CrossFit Lemoore, Ryan Rocha, and Lemoore police officers for helping with organization of that event. I'm very proud of them. Secondly, tonight is National Night Out. It's a national campaign that promotes police and our community. And if you had an opportunity to go out to Heritage Park tonight, we had several hundred people there. And the turnout was amazing. The amount of people that came out to actually promote their organizations to partner with Lemoore Police Department, Lemoore Volunteer Fire Department, was truly amazing. And I put together a list because I don't want to leave anyone out that participated in that event, and hopefully you'll allow me to go through that list really quick. Kings County Tobacco Coalition, DJ Jennifer Christensen, California Highway Patrol, Lemoore Volunteer Fire Department, Kings County Probation, Hannah's House, Champions, Assemblymember Rudy Salas, Kings United Way, American Ambulance, Xfinity Cable Company, The Land's Edge, Kings County Library, Sarah Mooney's Museum, Bounce for Fun, Victim Witness of Kings County Department of Child Support Services, Lemoore Chamber of Commerce, Lemoore Recreation Department, and Chip Quintero's Snow Cones. And last but certainly not least, all of the Lemoore PD family members are VIPs. Lemoore Rotary was out there barbecue and hot dogs. It was 105 degrees there, and it was like 120 by the barbecue. So I want to thank them for this, their special, benefit to our program. I also want to thank the community, because in our organization, community policing is a priority. And without our community, we would not be successful. So I had an opportunity to speak to many people out there, and it's because of our community, which makes us unique as an organization and as a community. So thank you for everyone who attended. I'm sorry that many of the council members weren't able to make it out there, but I just wanted to say a big shout out for all of those involved. Thank you.
And then lastly, I have a couple items. So a while back, I talked about the work the city was doing in partnering with a program out of Hanford Produce that allows us to employ individuals that are subsidized by a state program. As of midweek, or as of the end of last week, we have a total of 2,878 hours, man-hours worked in the city at a cost of $45,587 that none of your general fund or tax dollars went to. So I want to thank my staff for making that happen. We're continuing to bring those people in to enhance our community. The Dollar General on 19th had a soft opening a few days ago, so there will be a grand opening coming for that, as well as the Arco AM/PM over on the west side of town. They are opening this evening, so they're probably open right now. Again, a soft opening, but they'll be doing a grand opening, and rumor has it it's going to be $1.99 gas when they open. Additionally, I'd like to thank Juan Cuevas from our Parks and Rec for getting this all pre-set up in anticipation that we may need it. And lastly, National Night Out. Got to go by there briefly. Chief didn't give it enough credit. It was pretty amazing, especially the fact that we had a helicopter land on the softball field, and to see all those kids crawling in and out of ambulances and the helicopters. I was a little jealous that I couldn't cut in front of them and take a tour myself, but just want to thank staff, and that's it.
Okay, move on to our next section, which is the consent calendar. We have 6 items on consent calendar. Council, is there any items that you wish to pull for further discussion?
I'd like to pull 3-6, please.
Okay, 3-6. Any others?
Yeah, I'd like to pull 3-2 through 3-5, please, for discussion.
3-2, 3-3, 3-4, and 3-5, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so we will go ahead. Is there any others? No? So that leaves 3-1 on the consent calendar. At this time, I will ask for a motion to approve the consent calendar except for 3-2 through 3-6.
Make a motion to approve consent calendar 3-1 as written.
Okay, so there's a motion by Mr. Brown and a second by Mr. Neal to approve the consent calendar, which is item 3-1. Mr. Brown? Aye. Mr. Neal? Aye. Mr. Chedister? Aye. Ms. Blair? Aye. And I vote aye as well. So the consent calendar is passed. So at this time, we will pull 3-2 for further discussion. That is approval and adoption of crossing guard, day camp manager, lifeguard, pool manager, and recreation leader job descriptions. Who will present that?
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. We have before you the adoption of the job descriptions for crossing guard, day camp manager, lifeguard, pool manager, and recreation leader. The City of Lemoore requires the part-time assistants, and we have determined that we do not have the job descriptions on file for those positions. And what's brought before you today is in order to approve the job descriptions in order for us to be able to recruit for those positions that are required.
I just wanted to know the timeline of when you intend to have those out and then filled.
Some of these are actually for next summer, so like crossing guard, pool manager, rec leader, those will be, and day camp manager, those will be for the summer positions for next year. The one that will be going out now will be the crossing guard. So if you approve tonight, we would open as early as tomorrow.
And the only thing I would like to add, just as a part of transparency, is that we have some sort of policy in place that would prevent immediate family members from being hired. That's all. Or at least reviewed, because we seem to have a bit of a problem with immediate family members.
Council, as my knowledge, the city does not have a nepotism policy with regards to hiring practices.
I think perhaps it's time that we check into that and create a policy against nepotism. That creates an immense liability for the city.
Members of the audience, please refrain from outbursts so that we can hear each other talk. Ms. Blair, did you have something you wanted to say?
Nepotism can cause potential liability for the city Perhaps it's time that we started looking into those sort of policies. Most other large cities and entities have such policies.
Thank you. Is there any other questions by council on this item? No? Public comment on this item. Is there anyone that would like to comment on this particular item? Okay. Please come forward, sir.
My name's Nick. Councilman Blair, I noticed that you embellish a lot of things. Councilman Blair, I noticed that you embellish a lot of things. So I'm going to preface my question by stating that you said, oh, geez, I was pulled over 6 times by the Lemoore Police Department. You weren't. You implied that, excuse me for just a second, let me get my notes. You ran a red light. You implied it was the other individual's fault
Sir,
that you hit.
I think I'm going to have to stop you on this because we're talking about this particular item about crossing guards.
Okay, then I'll stop, Mayor. But my point is, because of these credibility issues, I need you to explain to me what other cities are implementing this program that you're talking about.
Other cities have nepotism policies.
Cities like what?
LA, for example. Like, I understand that we are not LA, but it's because it poses a potential liability. And usually when there's larger cities, they have larger pools of educated people who understand how lawyers think and how people come in and sue willy-nilly. And it's important that we start looking to the future. We are not living in 1950 anymore. And this is a liability problem. And I just have to know, what is the big problem with putting in a policy that states, hey, if we have an immediate family member like wanting to be hired for a potential job, we have like an outside third-party person take a look at this and make sure that the hires are on the up and up. What is really the problem with that?
I have no problem with that, just like I have no problem with the recall. I think that's important. We have that implemented too. But I just...
Right now we're not discussing that. We're discussing a nepotism policy.
I was just making an analogy. I hope you understand what an analogy is. And I want you to understand something. I feel very insulted. There's a lot of intelligent people in this room. Just because they do not agree with your interesting ideas and statements, that doesn't mean they're ignorant. Because I could look at you and I could think you're ignorant too. So it can work both ways. So use common sense and think before you talk.
Council.
Mr.
Again, Rich Tuman.
Council.
Sir.
I'm sorry.
Please address your comments to the council as a whole, please.
As a whole.
Yes.
Okay, this is as a whole. The
Mayor?
comment. Go ahead,
I'm sorry. May I interrupt? I was incorrect. The city does currently have a nepotism policy. It is very broad. And I know that the staff has been working on revised personnel rules, which is why I thought they did not. So I just want to correct my statement.
That's fine. That's fine. The council made comments, if I have to broaden this horizon, obviously. The council made comments that the larger towns of LA, again, we're going back to where I said from my initial statement. This city is not, the community is, and its beliefs, there's too many people here that are somehow related in some way or another. If you're talking about expense to a city, if we had to bring in an independent person every time a family member or someone that you were related to somehow by marriage or however was involved in a position, we would spend more on investigations of people than we would on getting some stuff done. So on this point, when you talk about money, that's what I'm trying to say. Use the common sense. We are in Lemoore, California, not LA. Our values here, we believe in each other and we work together. If there's a problem, I guarantee you this town will figure out the problem and go after them. Thank you.
Patrick Matthews, 195 West Burlwood Lane here in Lemoore. Quick question I had on these positions, the crossing guard, the day camp manager, lifeguard, pool manager, and recreation leader. I don't see how that would be a problem if one of your kids was a lifeguard. I mean, I could see a problem if it was one of your, direct family members. So how would being a crossing guard, if any of your children was a crossing guard, how would that be a liability? So that's just kind of a...
I'm talking about the hiring process. It's not the actual hire. It's to make sure that it's transparent. What is our unemployment rate in the city right now?
Ms. Blair, can we refrain from commenting during public comment? But when we come back during discussion, you can ask those questions.
I mean, as I said, I mean, these to me would be like a crossing guard. I mean, I don't see where there would be a huge problem with that.
Hello, my name is Christine King. I'm a longtime resident of this town. I went to Mary Immaculate Queen School, MIQ, my entire life. All of my siblings did, all of my children did, and all of my children do. I am a crossing guard at our school, and I pay tuition, and my kids go there. There has been no problem. I've never had an issue with any of the other parents. We do this to keep our children safe. I've never had an issue with another person being a crossing guard, and I'm crossing my nephews, my nieces, the other people of the other residents and students and the parents and teachers across the parking lot. It's never caused a problem in the 59 years that MIQ has been a school here in Lemoore, California. So I just wanted to make that statement.
Thank you.
I am also a crossing guard at MIQ because 2 of my children attend there. It's a private organization, not a public entity that uses our public tax money that needs transparency.
Ms. Blair, will... Yes, until it comes back for discussion. Okay? Thank you. Is there any other public comment on this matter? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for further discussion. Ms. Blair, do you have any questions or any comments?
I do. I want to know what our unemployment rate is in the city right now. Can anybody tell me?
I don't know.
I think that's important to recognize. We have a very high unemployment rate around here, and if we have a policy in place that I would want to know that there's a lot of people employed, that the only people who seem to be able to get hired are people who are immediately related. That seems to be a problem.
Is there any other comments?
I'd like to say something, that I believe that our city has a fair interview process. I do not doubt or question their ability to hire the right person for the job. So in that case, I would like to make a motion to approve item 3-2 as read.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Chedister and a second by Mr. Brown to approve the motion. Mr. Chedister? Aye. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Blair? No. Mr. Neal? And I vote aye. The motion is passed. Thank you. We will move on to item 3-3, which is the approval of the investment report for the month ended May 31st, 2018. Ms. Corder.
Good evening, Council. This is the investment report for May 31st, 2018. It talks about how much money we have invested and how much is in our investments and how much is in cash. So I'm available for questions.
Any questions?
I just asked it to be brought up because I oftentimes get questions about what that means, and I really appreciate when you come up and are able to explain that for public record because it answers a lot of questions ahead of time. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to our council for discussion or vote.
I'll make a motion to approve item 3-3 as proposed.
Second. There's a motion by Mr. Chedister and a second by Mr. Neal to approve item 3-3 as written. Mr. Chedister? Aye. Mr. Neal? Aye. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
And I vote aye. Thank you. We'll move to item 3-4, which is approval to rescind resolution 2013-17 and amend the establishment of a 7K pay plan exemption under Federal Labor Standards Act for certain reserve officers in the police department. Resolution 2018-39.
Good evening again. What is before you is we did have, our reserve officers are part-time officers, and they work the same schedule as our full-time officers. Full-time officers were previously at 160 hours a pay period, which was every month. And we had a resolution that established that time frame, same time frame for reserve officers for police officers. So anything over 160 hours was considered overtime. In January of 2018, we transitioned to biweekly pay, which means we have to transition our reserve officers to biweekly pay as well. They would have overtime after an 80-hour pay period instead of the 160. And that's what this establishes. So it rescinds the previous resolution, and it adopts the current time frame of 80 hours.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just for clarification, so this allows for, I just wanted to make sure I understand correctly. This allows so that overtime is paid correctly to those reserve officers, is that correct?
Correct. It would be based on the same time frame as our full-time officers.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is there any public comment on this matter? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for a vote. Have a motion?
I'll make a motion. Or second, whoever said.
So I have a motion by Ms. Blair and a second by Mr. Neal to approve the item. Is that correct?
Correct.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Neal? Aye. Mr. Chedister?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
And I vote aye. The motion is passed. Go to item 3-5, which is approval, acceptance of subdivision agreement, noise and odor easement and final map, tract 920 for Lennar Homes of California Incorporated.
Good evening. What this is about is to accept the subdivision agreement for tract 920, which is located at the northeast intersection of Hanford Mona Road and Liberty. The staff has gone through the improvement plans along with conditions. The developer has met all of the city's conditions. They have paid their permits and bonds, and also have committed to entering into a PFMD landscape district. So, is there any specific questions that you may have?
Ask for it to be pulled so that it could be better explained to the public, because sometimes we see these things and we don't always explain to everyone, and you're the best person to make that explanation, so thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
Any other questions? No?
What consists of the noise and odor?
It's a general condition that protects, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, we have planes that fly over cities, so we have smells, you know, that
fertilizer or,
and so we just want to make sure that. Oh, I'll let Janelle answer that.
Okay.
The noise, council, the noise and odor ordinance is basically has been put in place in a lot of the subdivisions due to the fact that you're close to a Navy base. Okay. You have a wastewater treatment plant nearby, those types of things.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on this matter? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for further discussion and a vote.
I motion to approve 3-5.
I'll second it.
So there's a motion by Mr. Neal and a second by Mr. Chedister to approve item 3-5. Mr. Neal?
Aye.
Mr. Chedister?
Aye.
Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. Motion is carried. Item 3-6 is approval, letter of support for the Fresno NAACP. Who will present that?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted, the reason I pulled this is and if I'm out of line, let me know, but just needed to change the name of it from Fresno NAACP to Kings County NAACP, because they're in the process of it's the letter of support. They're doing it as a quad county grant. They're trying to get a quad county grant. There's no costing from the city for this grant, no matching funds. It's just a letter of support from the city of Lemoore asking that that we support them to go forth with this grant on it's tobacco cessation, things of that nature to get people to help people stop smoking, and increase get their health better and things of that nature. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions?
So do we just need to add Kings County and replace it Fresno?
Yes.
Is that, okay.
Is
I'm
there
good with
any,
that.
is there any public comment on this?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
I think there's public comment.
Gary Smith, I'm in Lemoore. Find myself very troubled that you're supporting the NAACP on cigarettes. Anybody that buys a pack of cigarettes looks on the side of it and says, smoking is hazardous to your health. Do you micromanage everybody? Is that the purpose of this council, to micromanage everybody? Because I've been sitting here listening to micromanagement versus the gentleman's use of common sense. And it doesn't seem to me that you're using a lot of common sense. It seems to me you're using a lot of micromanagement.
Thank you.
Dr. Crystal Jackson, NAACP, Kings County. As stated, this is a grant that will help Kings County and the surrounding counties. It will help seven different counties. It has not only deals with tobacco, it also deals with e-vaping. And this grant, which we will find out whether or not we receive this in November, it will help as far as where we mentor children regarding e-vaping and tobacco use. This program will it won't reduce people from smoking, because that's a personal choice. Either you're going to smoke or you aren't going to smoke, but this program will provide the education, the support in order to do these different things. And in order to have this passed, we need a letter of support from our city. And that's why I presented this to the city, to stand as a united front, not to micromanage. It's to, like I said, it is to educate. It was only a mistake made as far as the name. The council is clearly aware, because I'm very transparent as far as what this grant is about. There's a PowerPoint that could be issued at any time to explain, screen by screen, what this grant is about. It's to help the city of Lemoore, not to hurt. And like stated by Councilman Brown, we're not asking for 1 penny. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to our council for discussion.
I just had a question, or it's actually a statement. I'm fairly certain the NAACP is a nonprofit organization, correct?
Is that correct, Ms. Jackson?
So they're not receiving any financial incentive. This is just an educational program, because I know myself, I have young children in elementary school, and they are marketing, tobacco companies are marketing to our young children e-vape flavors, in bubblegum flavor, in blueberry flavor, and the packaging looks like candy. And I think it's imperative that our community is well educated on some of the new campaign slogans that are out there right now for the safety of our children, and this is something that will help educate our community. So I'm in full support.
Any other comment?
I'd like to make a motion to,
Yep, I'd like to make a motion, but to approve this item 3-6, but to change the name to Kings County NAACP grant.
Okay, is that agreeable, Ms. Blair?
Absolutely.
To your motion? Okay, so we have a motion by Ms. Blair and a second by Mr. Chedister. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Brown? Aye. Mr. Chedister? Aye. Mr. Neal? Aye. And I vote aye as well. The motion is passed. Thank you. We'll move on to Section 4, which is public hearings. Item 4-1 is the assessment of annual levy for fiscal year 18-19 for Landscape and Lighting Maintenance District Number 1, Zones 1 through 13. It's Resolution 2018-40, and Public Facilities Maintenance District Number 1, Zones 1 through 8, which is Resolution 2018-41. Mr. Rivera.
Good evening again. The City of Lemoore annually levies and collects special assessments for funding of ongoing operation, maintenance, and servicing of local landscaping, neighborhood parks, and related appurtenant facilities and services in specified areas in the city. State law requires that each year an engineer's report must be prepared to justify the need to either increase or possibly decrease the assessment of all PFMDs and LLMD zones. The engineer's report, as shown here, prepared by Wildem Financial Services, documenting the need for the cost of the proposed assessments, was presented to the City Council on June 19, 2018. The engineer's report is the basis for the adoption of resolution of the intent to levy and collect annual assessment for fiscal year 2018-2019 within zones 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8A, 8B, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 of the City of Lemoore Landscape and Lighting Maintenance District Number 1, LLMD, and zones 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 of the City of Lemoore Public Facilities Maintenance District Number 1, PFMD. The pros and cons, and so as you see on the second page, it has the assessments that were last year's and this year's. Neither one of the fees that were listed under the 2018 go beyond the maximum assessed value. Some of these have changed just because of the engineer's report showed minor increases, but none of these are nowhere near the maximum possible assessment. The pros and cons ensures that the ability for the city to levy assessments to fund improvements throughout the city in the respective zones. Which cover such things as the landscaping along the frontage of streets that enter the subdivisions. It'll cover street light maintenance, but mostly it's landscaping. In the
Okay,
PFM,
it's landscaping.
yeah,
How
in
about the resolution? It's going to go from 2018 to 2040?
2018 to 2040. No.
Oh, that's just the number?
That's just a resolution number. This levy is for the 18-19. We bring this back every year.
Every year it has to come
Okay.
back for approval.
Okay, I was looking at the numbers. They had the space in there. That's a long stretch.
Every year, yes.
Okay.
Every year we go through the same process. Okay. And again, the PFMDs, it covers such things as, you know, road surface treatment, it covers street light.
Okay, you have LLMDs. What's the difference between the two?
There should be all LLMDs.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? So just so the public understands, how are these fees assessed and collected?
That gets pretty complicated. Unfortunately, Jim, our engineer wasn't able to make it today. He's at another city council meeting doing the same thing. There is a extensive engineer, survey that's done. They take in consideration the amount of grass, the amount of shrubs, the amount of, lights, whatever that are in those particular zones. They put it to a average labor cost in order to do the work, and they compile it in their report. So the report that's provided is very thorough, and it touches bases on everything that's included in each of those particular zones. I apologize, I can't really elaborate too much, but I know it's a fairly complicated process, and I have our engineers here to answer some of those. But
And PFMDs is for public faculty maintenance?
Public Facility Maintenance District, yes.
So it's sufficient to say that we do hire an outside consultant, an engineering company that does these for us.
Yes,
and
sir.
I have read through those. They're very extensive. They break down things by the foot or something like that. Are you confident in the results of the surveys and the costings that come out of them?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
So every year you guys do an assessment on this, right?
Yes.
And what's the cost of that?
Nathan, you?
I believe it's about $8,000 for the. If we do one on its own, it's about $8,000. The whole zone, I'd have to look at the numbers, but it is costly, and it does come out of the
general.
No, it comes out of the fee collected for the zones.
Okay, thank you.
We're required by law to do the assessment annually.
I just wanted to clarify the part of the problem, especially Zone 1, for example, is that the assessment hadn't been done for about 14 years, and we're sort of playing catch up, and so the initial fee levied is a bit of a high price tag, and I just wanted to clarify that that's sort of what had happened. And going forward, I know that the engineer's report has given us, I don't doubt the numbers that have been presented. What I question is our ability to work with the public and have those fees levied in more of a stretched out way, or work with them on a new idea of how to have the public, because the public voted no. They do not want these new fees levied. And so that will come out of our general fund. So part of that is education, letting it won't come out of the general fund, it'll come out of the other fees, right?
So we're required to provide the service of what we collect annually. So it can come out of general fund if this body directs staff to use general fund dollars to subsidize the individual zones, then yes, it could, but that is not a current practice.
So it just ends up falling further and further behind. So every year that the assessment is made, the assessment of the fee that needs to be levied is therefore increased. So every year we are going to go through this, and every year the public is going to vote no on that high price tag. They've already voted no. So I would suggest we start looking into other ways to have that caught up.
So each LLMD has a voted on by the voters maximum Once we hit that maximum cap, we can no longer raise the fee on that district unless it goes back to a vote to the individual zones. A PFMD has a maximum, but they also build in an annual inflator, so you can kind of keep up with inflation. Particularly, Zone 1 is an LLMD that does not have an inflator, and they're using an assessment that was done in '95 when minimum wage was $5. And we have not increased it, and it has several failed attempts to bring it up to speed. So we cannot go beyond the max without a vote of the public.
And that's sort of my point, though, that we're behind, we're playing catch up, and so the initial price tag is kind of high for some of these zones, and that's why we are going to continue to see no's from the public on this, and I'd like to suggest that we try to come up with some other ways to help catch us up in those zones.
Yes, next year we will definitely be more proactive. We will spend more time, we did hold nightly meetings. Wednesday night we had 2 or 3 at a city park near the subdivision. We will have those a lot sooner before the ballots go out, just so that we can answer questions, make sure they're clear on the increases. So.
We're playing catch up to about 14 years. Is that correct? Behind? Is that the correct number?
I don't think it's 14 years. I don't believe it's 14. I think that the problem is that there was never an inflator, initiated. So, 14 years ago it cost you to do that, and we're trying to do the same work for the same, the same work, but for higher wages.
I understand. I'm just saying that gap, that increase, yes, that initial price tag for a lot of the constituents in those zones is shocking because they're playing catch up, and so that initial fee levied in those areas to be able to clean up the landscape in those zones, because, for example, my area doesn't have an LMD, so I'm not paying into that, but another zone is paying into their zone to be cleaned up, and because some of the zones are so far behind, that first price tag to get them back caught up to speed is so high, it's causing a lot of constituents to vote no on that, and that's going to continue to happen unless we come up with another solution.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, this is a public hearing, so at this time I will open the public hearing and ask for public comment.
I have a real quick question on what zone would be Fox Street from Cinnamon north to Hanford Armona?
That would be LLMD Zone 1, District 1.
Okay. Whenever the trees got taken out for the cement repair and stuff like that, I saw in the news where, people from out of Lemoore were like, oh my gosh, you guys are tearing trees out and everything. Okay, and hasn't that been over a year that was done? I go that route every day to work, and I'm like, man, this looks like crap. Is that something that we're talking about? Is money
yes,
that goes into that?
That is exactly what we're talking about. Now, in that case, those trees that were removed were damaging curb gutter and sidewalks, so
exactly.
We couldn't just patch it to get it together.
Right.
So in that case, we did actually, I went to council, I was Public Works Director at the time, and we did use general fund dollars to get that section, that east side of Fox Street, ADA compliant.
Okay.
What we found after we removed the trees is there's a main 4-inch main gas line that's about 3 feet in some areas to 4 feet right where those trees were. So that kind of prevents us from going back. Being a tree well standard is 5 feet deep, and we couldn't remove stumps. We had to grind stumps because we were worried about potential gas leaks. But that zone currently to date is several $100,000 in the red.
In the red. Okay.
So we can't pass an assessment to get it caught up and try to make those dollars back up, but we can pass an assessment with some capital improvements to continually work to get that zone back up to where we can be proud of it when we walk and drive through there.
Yes. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak during this time? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
reports that were issued, a few key financial statement items, some required communications under generally accepted auditing standards, and then finally some room for discussion or questions if you have any. So our firm is located in Clovis, California. We're founded in 1976, have over 40 years of experience. One of the reasons I like to go over this is because I've had questions at other in other municipalities. We audit probably 40 governmental agencies, including my name is Fausto Hinojosa. I'm a CPA and the engagement partner. I've been doing this for approximately 25 years. Josh Giosa, who you may remember from prior year, is one of our audit managers, and he was a manager on your engagement. Christy Miller, also a CPA, is an audit supervisor. And finally, one of our senior auditors, Anthony Gonzalez, over 50 years experience on the audit team that conducted the field work for your audit. What's the audit process? Just very briefly. The audit process is a process where we assess the risks of two things, errors and fraud. As auditors, that's what we're interested in. We want to find out whether there's any fraud, and we want to know whether there are any material errors in the numbers. And the way we do that is by obtaining an understanding of the city's operations, certainly specifically related to financial operations, but we want to know beyond finances because sometimes there are things that are not financial that may have a financial impact. And we do that by obtaining an understanding of what we call internal controls. We want to know whether those controls that the city has in place to monitor financial activities, we want to find out two things about those. Is that control effectively designed? Number one, because you might have a control that's supposed to mitigate a risk of fraud, for example, but there may be a bad design, and so we need to obtain an understanding of the design of that control. Then we want to determine whether that control, even if it is effectively designed, whether in fact it has been placed in operation. For example, it's great to say that you're going to require somebody to review the invoice when it comes in, then it goes to accounts payable, a second person reviews it, a different person inputs it, a third person writes a check. That might be an effectively designed control. However, if people aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, the policy's good, but the implementation's bad. And so from an audit perspective, we are obtaining an understanding of both the design and the implementation so that then we can assess risk and then we can develop audit procedures to find out whether anything went wrong, right? So we understand the financial operation. Now we design audit procedures specifically to address those risks. And so in a nutshell, that is the audit process, and that's what we've done at the City of Lemoore. A few key areas of emphasis for us. So again, your financial statements are very big. You've got a lot of big numbers in there. And an audit is not a 100% test of transactions. There is no way that we can do that. The auditing standards allow us to select samples in accordance with the auditing rules so that we don't look at every transaction. We look at the higher risk transactions and we look at the higher dollar items. Now, in some cases, for example, if we believe that there is a fraud risk, then dollars may not be as important as who we think might be doing something wrong, right? And so, again, we assess all those risks, and then we come up with an audit strategy. A few areas that were an emphasis this year were cash. In any audit, cash is always going to be an area of emphasis. Revenues and receivables, expenses, including salaries, current and long-term liabilities, capital assets that the city owns, and finally the net pension liability, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. So what type of report did we issue? We issued a couple of auditors' reports. First, we issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on the city's financial statements. What does that mean? A clean opinion means that the numbers that are presented in the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with the accounting rules. So a clean opinion is not what sometimes people believe, oh, that's a clean bill of health with respect to our finances. We're doing great economically. That's not what the auditor does. The auditor says, these are the numbers that are presented, and these are accurate numbers. These numbers are fairly stated. So it could be a really bad picture, not that it is in your case, but it could be a really bad picture, You might have the city of New York, for example, that has these massive pension liabilities, is upside down. And so the picture isn't pretty, but their auditor issues a clean opinion. Why? Because it's an accurate picture. And so that's what the audit process does. So we've issued a clean opinion, meaning your financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with the accounting rules. So a few key financial statement items. Again, not to go to the financial statements, but you can look through the financial statements. On page 16 is your general fund, and just a very brief snapshot. Your assets were just over $10 million. You had liabilities of approximately $1 million. And so you had a fund balance, an equity or a net position. If you're a private citizen, you might just call that your net worth, right? What you own minus what you owe is your net worth. And so you had assets of 10, liabilities of 1. So you had equity or fund balance of $9 million. Of that $9 million, however, a lot of that is restricted or non-spendable, committed for various purposes. The unassigned portion, the portion that was free and clear at the end of the year, was just over $3 million. Now, revenues and expenses. For the year, the general fund brought in revenues of approximately $8.8 million, expenses of $10.4 million. So for the year, the general fund actually had a loss of $1.6 million. These numbers are hard to see up there, and this is just a table that I extracted from the numbers in the financial statement, and these are your enterprise funds. So this table shows your water, sewer, refuse, and golf fund, and it shows the revenues, the expenses, and then some non-operating revenues and expenses. So you can see, for example, in the water fund, if I can make that out, that it's about $4.2 million of revenues, about $3.9 million of expenses, some non-operating items, which include interest, income, or expense, and some other items. I think there was some insurance recovery in that number. And so bottom line, in that water fund, you had a net income of $1 million. The sewer fund, a net income of close to $1.5 million. The refuse fund, close to break even at $155,000. And finally, the golf fund lost $113,000 for the year. Over on page 12 in the financial statements, you have the pension liability. That's been an item of significant discussion at a lot of governments and a lot of municipalities. And so I wanted to just try to summarize that liability for you. You have a total pension liability, so this is the unfunded liability. You have a total of $10.6 million. Of that, of the 10.6, approximately 2.8 is due from your enterprise activities, your business type activities, the refuse, water, sewer, et cetera. And about 7.8 million is for your governmental activities. And so we might say your general fund over time will end up having to pay that liability. So a $10.6 million unfunded pension liability. This table I like to share, and I call it the discount rate sensitivity. It's a disclosure that's in the financial statements, but I like to share it with council and constituents because I think it's important. So I said your current liability is about $10.6 million. That liability is calculated not by accountants but by actuaries. So it's calculated by the people at PERS, and this is your share of that big liability at PERS. Those actuaries have to make significant assumptions about the future. How much are you going to earn on your investments? How long are people going to live? How much is healthcare costs going to increase, et cetera? So that $10.6 million, that's not just a wild guess. There are professional actuaries calculating that number, but it is an estimate with a lot of assumptions. One of the big assumptions in that estimate is what they call a discount rate. That discount rate is their expected long-term rate of return. So in the calculation, they used a 7.65 discount rate, meaning the actuaries thought, okay, over the long term, we expect to earn 7.65. Had they used a lower rate, 6.65 as an example, that liability of $10 million would actually be a $16 million liability. Why? Because if you don't earn 7.65, but instead only earn 6.65, your liability certainly would be a lot bigger. However, if they used an 8.65 interest rate, discount rate, expecting to earn more, then your liability would be less because there would be more money from the investments in the pot to pay off the liability. So I like to share that. One of the things that we do know is that PERS is going to take that 7.65 rate, which has resulted in a $10 million liability, and they're going to reduce that discount rate. And I don't remember the exact number now, but they provide those numbers, and so some of that is used in budgeting. They provide those numbers. So that liability we expect to increase fairly significantly here over time as a result of the calculation and using a lower discount rate.
Can you tell me what the percentage of the unfunded liability for CalPERS is right now if it's above 70% at this time?
I actually cannot right at the moment. So these numbers are June 30, 2017. The reports have come out, and so we'd be able to get that information to you. I can get that in an email to you in the next day or two.
Right, because that's the recommended from League of Cities that we stay above a 70% threshold for our unfunded liabilities to the PERS system.
Absolutely. And so another thing about this liability, so it's a $10 million liability, but it's not like you have to write a check tomorrow, right? PERS sends you a bill monthly, and you make payments on that bill. PERS' responsibility is to incorporate a portion of this liability such that you're paying not only the current share of employee pension, but also that long-term share of the liability. That is their responsibility to include that in the bill. What they've said, in the invoice to you rather, what they've said is they're going to request and require bigger and larger payments because they need to fund that liability. Certainly what the stock market has done in the last year and a half has impacted that unfunded portion because of the gains in the market.
And that's why I asked for our city liability that we maintain the recommended average of above 70% unfunded. So that's why I asked if you'll please bring back those numbers.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to move on. So we issued two reports. We issued the audit report on the financial statements. We also issued a separate report under government auditing standards. And in the internal control area, we did have 4 findings related to accounting year-end closing transactions. One of the challenges that the city experienced, and you would know better than I, that there was some significant turnover and shortage in the finance department. And so we believe that Ms. Corder did a good job with the accounting. There were some final entries that needed to be made with respect to some complex transactions. And so when we came in to do the audit, those had not been made. And so from an audit perspective, if those entries have not been made, we propose them as audit adjustments, but then we're required to report them as internal control deficiencies. We had no compliance findings, however, and that's a good note. So final slide here, required communications. The auditing standards require that auditors report to those charged with governance, the city council in this case, in the city's case, a few items. So with respect to significant accounting policies, there were no major changes. The significant estimates, the most significant estimate in the financial statements we've already talked about, which was the pension liability. Sensitive disclosures. There are probably 50 pages of footnotes in the financial statements that describe and provide further context for the numbers in the financial statement. And so there are a number of sensitive disclosures in the financial statements. That pension disclosure is probably 4, 5, 6 pages alone. And so that is something that you might want to take a look at. With respect to difficulties encountered in performing the audit, we had some timing difficulties because of the city's challenge with the staffing issue. And then once the city was ready, we had already made other commitments ourselves. And so unfortunately, the process was delayed. We are on track this year, though, to get back to where we had been in the prior year and to make sure that the audit is completed more timely. Significant audit adjustments. I've described that we had a few adjustments related to some of the complex transactions at year end. We had no disagreements with management regarding accounting policies. One of the things that we're required to report to you is if we recommend an accounting practice or an accounting entry, and management says, well, we don't really agree with you, and they go get a second opinion, we're required to report that to you. One of the reasons that we'd be required to report that to you is so that you'd know that perhaps their management might be wanting the numbers to look a certain way. We're glad to report that we have good communication when we propose an audit adjustment. Ms. Corder and the team, after communicating about it, post those adjustments, and so we have no disagreements with respect to accounting entries. Management was very transparent with respect to the records they provided us, and so we have no issues to report there. Also pleased to report that we did not identify any fraud or illegal acts. We're not lawyers, and so we're not talking about legal compliance. We're talking about compliance that may have an impact on financial statement numbers or fraud in financial areas that impact the financial statements. So I was talking very quickly. I'm glad to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Are there any questions? Is there any public comment at this time? Come forward, sir.
In the last council meeting that we had, you provided that we had a reserve of 4-point-some% because we had done some really significant issues with regard to moving projects to other cost structures. And you were in a better percent because your basic target is 35% according to the city manager. And so I'm wondering if that assessment report that was just provided deals with the reserves, because those were discussed last meeting, but they were only discussed in percentages, not in real numbers. This gentleman is talking in real numbers.
Ms. Corder.
Yes, that amount was included in the reserves. It was, that amount was included? That's correct. You're welcome.
Is there any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for discussion and vote. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. I also just wanted to say that I just thought that the report was very well prepared and presented in a way that actually answered a lot of questions before we got up here. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody involved in preparing the report. And I'll motion.
And I'll second 4-1.
Okay, so there is a motion by Ms. Blair and a second by Mr. Chedister to approve the comprehensive annual finance report for the year ended June 30th, 2017. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Chedister? Aye. Mr. Brown? Aye. Mr. Neal? Aye. And I vote aye as well. The motion is passed. Thank you. We'll move to item 5-2, which is report and recommendation, request for censure. Ms. Van Binsbergen, and I will once again would like to admonish everyone here to please maintain composure and decorum. If anyone is found to be disruptive, you will be warned. And if you continue to be disruptive, we will ask that you be removed from the council chambers. So please, let's keep this civil. Direct your comments when it is time for public comment. Everyone will have a chance to come forward if they like. Please direct your comments to the council as a whole, as a body, not a particular person. And we will go ahead and move forward at this time. Ms. Van Binsbergen.
Council, Mayor and Council, members of the public, the item is on tonight for the council to provide direction to myself and city staff regarding what procedures and specific allegations for censure the council would like to consider for a written censure in a resolution at a following meeting. Basically, there's no specific procedures set forth for a censure process. The council as a body gets to decide what those procedures look like. You can discuss what you would like to see happen. A written censure would basically be put into a resolution, which could then be brought forth at another council meeting for adoption by the council. But in order to write that resolution, staff needs some specific directions regarding the conduct or actions and what laws, rules, procedures have been violated accordingly. Now, council can do that tonight in open session here, or council has other options. Some of the other options, which are not included in the staff report, is council could establish a committee to put forth that resolution, and then that committee would then meet, put something forward, and the whole resolution would come back to council. So it really is up to council how they'd like to proceed. The minimum requirement is that if written censure is to proceed, council must give the individual that is receiving the censure notice of the items and the opportunity to respond. So while tonight you may have discussions and there may be back and forth, the direction would need to be, clear direction would need to be given to put what you want as a council in the resolution. That resolution would need to then be served upon the council member prior to the next meeting, and that council member would have the right to come and respond with a representative or on their own. So that's the basic procedures, and staff is just seeking direction from council on this matter. For both procedure and if they'd like to proceed.
Okay, so to make it clear, this is just one step in a process. So
correct.
Today we can decide whether or not we want to move forward with the censure at all, and then what to put in the censure.
What procedure you'd like to use, whether you want it to be, it could be as informal as writing the resolution, providing a copy, and letting the council member respond, or it could be as much as some bodies have a full-blown hearing type process. So it's up to council on what the process they want to use. The minimum process is notice and the right to respond, basically.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Just for clarification, we don't actually have a process to censure. They're actually going to create a process just to censure me. So we're actually creating that process now. Just like we didn't have a code of conduct before they wanted to shut me up, and they created that and passed it 5 minutes before putting me on trial for breaking it. So now we're going to create the whole censure process, and it'll be just as laughable.
Ms. Van Bensbergen, is it legal what we're doing the way we're doing it? Ms. Van Bensbergen?
Yes, the process is a legal process, yes.
And under what statute or what regulation are we saying that this is a legal process that we were doing?
Council, I can get that for you. I'd have to check my notes. But basically, my legal research has indicated that the governing body has the ability under both statutory and case law to set procedures for how they would like to proceed with censure, and that the minimum, a due process is required to the individual that's being censured, which is what I described as notice and a right to respond. And I could get for the council and the public, if you give me a few minutes, I can get the actual code sections and case law, case sites, I should say.
Okay. So are there any other questions at this time? So should we open it up to public comment first and then bring it back to discussion and see if there is a motion that we would want to proceed or not proceed with the censure process and what format we would like to use?
I would like to, myself, I'd like to open it up to public to see what the public has to say.
Okay, so at this time we'll go ahead and open it up to public comment. Anyone wishing to come forward and speak about this matter, which, as we've discussed, is to decide whether or not there are grounds and justification for a censure, and what format we are going to use if we decide to do that. Anyone that comes forward, I would like to remind you that we have 3-minute limit for anyone that makes public comment. So this time I'd like to open it up to public comment.
I'll go first. Could you give the definition to the public of what the censure is? That way everybody else knows what this is.
Yeah, censure is basically the power of a legislative body to express its opinion, the body's opinion, on the conduct of one of its members, and allows for public disapproval of that conduct.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I'm going to keep this short and sweet. My name is Brian Smith, and I am here in support of the Chief of Police of Lemoore. As a citizen of Lemoore, I am asking for the resignation of Holly Blair. Thank you.
Good evening, Mark Pescator, 580 Haven Way. I'd just like to say that I stand behind our chief 100%. I stand behind our city manager 100%. I find it appalling that an elected official would call into question their integrity in open council. If that's something that you believe to be an issue, it would minimally be a personal matter for closed session and could not be discussed in open council. I'm quite sure, in fact, that it would be a Brown Act violation for you to discuss closed session items in open council. Additionally, on a personal note, asking two parents about their children's dating relationship is at minimum inappropriate and costless. You were all elected to serve the people of Lemoore. You chose to serve much like all the men and women in the department that I work with. The difference is the members of my department are held to the highest of standards, while some of you on this council will not agree to a simple code of conduct. If you want to question the integrity of those who serve this city, I humbly ask that you start questioning by looking inward first. The behavior I've seen over the past couple months simply shocks the conscience. To call anyone on social media who disagrees with you a misogynist or a racist does not allow for intelligent discussion or debate. Calling people trolls and handing out caucasity awards on your Facebook does not welcome discussion for the betterment of our city. It turns people away and makes them believe our city is a joke. When businesses and potential business owners look up the city of Lemoore to see what we have to offer, they see this, a debacle, which casts a long shadow over this council and its decisions. If you want to be seen as a champion for the people, be the kind of champion that people love, not the kind that they love to hate. Thank you for your time.
Hi, Kristen Curcio, resident Lemoore. As part of the committee to recall Blair 2018, I and we feel very strongly that we're doing the right thing to support this agenda to censor this council member. Council member, when your immediate family members contact this committee to recall you as an individual, you know that you're doing the right thing. We are doing the right thing. The lies posted on Facebook that were when she was served by Tammy Alanaz are completely false and additional supports to censor this individual. They were posted on Facebook. As someone who has experienced with abuse of power, violation of standard of conduct, and ethics, this council member fits the bill of all of those. It's time to censor. It's time to recall.
Ed Rogers, 951 Tranquility Court here in the city of Lemoore. I've only lived in your town 9 years, and I have no relatives here, so I guess I'm okay. But I'll tell you what I do have here. I have something better than relatives. I have a heck of a lot of friends, and let me tell you, that's sometimes better than family. So, but what I want to do is kind of have to go back on your crossing guard thing to kind of lead into what I want to say about what we're here talking about tonight. So just bear with me and don't throw me to the wolves. But there was a question come up early on the unemployment rate in the city of Lemoore. Does anybody in this room know what it is? 6.2%. You're real close, 6.4. Albert Einstein once said, I don't know everything, but I know where to get the answer. So I sat here and Googled it. It is 6.4 in March of 2018. Would you care to find out what it was in 2010? 15.8. We're doing good, guys. We're doing good. And in comparison to our city of Hanford and not LA,
we're always 1% higher over there. So we're doing good again over here in Lemoore. So the reason I bring that up, those numbers, is you look that up, I guess, because I have no family in this town, I guess I could be a crossing guard. Okay? But here's my problem with that, and that's what I want to talk about with social media. I'm not going to pinpoint, but we all know who we're talking about here. On that social media network, you notice everybody behind me can see my bright T-shirt tonight. Old guys rule. Okay? There's a word missing that one of your council people like to add on social media. And if I said this in another word, I'd be run out of town, okay? Old white guys. She doesn't like old white guys. That's on her social media. Well, I tell you what, you lit my fuse when you did that. That, pardon my French, pissed me off. I voted in this town. I voted for some of you. I've been here 8 years, 9 years. I vote all the time. I don't miss. I don't miss. And I can't believe it that a council member can have those kind of words, talk about the public. Because let me tell you, I did 30 years working for a city. And if I had an employee that talked that way, and I'll guarantee you all you here, if you had this as an employee problem right now, they'd be down the road. They'd be fired. They'd be fired. I guarantee you. Being elected and getting a title city council person doesn't make you up there. Okay? You're just another person with a title. And this old told me a long time ago in the fire department, titles are cheap. And what they meant by that, go to McDonald's, fry technician. What do? I cook French fries. Give them a title and they'll bust their butt. Okay? So, what I'm saying here is, that is inappropriate for your language. You're about to tell me to shut up. That's
I'm
okay.
going to have to tell you to stop, please.
But I'm still pissed off.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. First off, I want to thank Councilwoman Blair for her hard work in making sure that the city of Lemoore is firmly united against you. I came to Lemoore in 1997 as a young, slim Navy man, stayed in this city because of the city, because of the people in the city. I have no family here except my wife. My son is not in the city, so we don't have to worry about him being hired or anything like that. He is, however, coming home. He's in the Air Force. He's flying home just to sign a recall petition, and then he'll be leaving again. Through youth sports and other city activities, I've met most of the people in this room somehow, some way. I feel censorship is going to be needed with this city council just based upon the simple fact that there is an elected official who is speaking false words in stating that certain people are engaged, that it's nepotism, going on the news, taking it, and trying to make a pity story for themselves instead of actually facing the truth that they're spewing lies. And so censorship is needed specifically for that person to make sure that false stories aren't pushed further out. And I want to thank Chief Smith furthermore. I've known him since before he was the chief of police. And when I had heard that he had taken the role as the interim chief of police, I literally ran down some stairs because I was able to then, and I shook his hand and I said, he is the right man for the job. And I'm very thankful to you, sir, and I'm thankful for your entire folks back there who do what they have to do to protect us. Thank you very much.
Gary Smith again. Sorry to bother you. I'd like to address that micromanagement versus common sense issue that the gentleman brought up. And the old guy's rule is really a pretty good guy, except by June of 2018, the BLS said the employment rate was 8.2%. However, they said it would also be 2% below the national average over a 10-year period. So there are some issues that Lemoore has to address. Now, something I observed last meeting was that two people on this council asked why, when they had asked the city council, city manager, to bring them information, which would be the alternatives that could be presented as a potential tax We came with what we were supposed to do, and you guys had to vote on it. I don't exactly think that's a brilliant way to go at things. I also wrote an editorial to the Sentinel saying, if you really want to have a 1% tax, then put a list in the assessment or the tax structure, define what you want, accept the fact that 2/3 of us have to vote for it, and be brave enough to take the answer that the citizens will give you, because you must respect them. They elected you. The other part of it is this: constitutionally, Ms. Blair has the right to say anything she wants, including anything stupid. And I looked at her feed on the Facebook. I wouldn't waste my time looking at it if you folks had any sense at all. I have no opinion one way or another with regard to the recall. That's a thing that a citizen has to deal with in their own time and their own place. But the thing that concerns me is the micromanagement versus common sense. When I was a kid going to school, us 6th graders were the crossing guards. And we took care of all the 5th graders, 4th graders, 3rd graders, 2nd graders, and 1st graders. So why are we employing people today to be crossing guards and not allowing the young people to assume responsibilities that help them in their growth? It's the same problem in the church. The church catechizes people, brings them in as members, and then just says, okay, you're here. The wrong thing to do is not to include people in your processes in the city, and this idea that the IRS is going to drive us to have everybody be an employee is a lot of horse manure.
Good evening, Council. My name is Robert Escalera, and I've been a resident of Lemoore since roughly 1995. I'm invested in the city as far as I do own my home. I could have put roots down anywhere. I didn't come from Lemoore. I was born out in Stratford, but I put roots here. I have a family here. My kids all went to school here, and I tried to reach out to my council member via Facebook. I don't know the lady. I've never spoken to her. I did reach out to her, and her only response was that I was insufferable and she did not want to be associated with me. I am demanding representation from a full city council, not just 4. And with that, I would like you to please turn in your resignation. Thank you.
My name is Susie Benuelos, and I was back and forth about what I wanted to speak tonight because I believe we have a lot of support for the recall and for the council as a whole, the mayor, city manager, and our wonderful police chief. But after sitting in the audience and observing a certain member of council, it's very important. I don't know if the folks on my right can see because of the podium, but Councilmember Blair has been almost the entirety of this meeting, whenever someone speaks in opposition to her, rolling her eyes, making really childish faces, gestures. We have some on video in the pictures. It's just really immature. It goes along with her Facebook post insulting not just her fellow members of council and our mayor and city officials, but the constituents of Lemoore, which is really embarrassing. She was elected at large by Lemoore citizens, and contrary to her constant claims and posting that her district, we all, as Lemoore, voted for her, and we all are coming together to recall her. Yeah, not we all literally. We all, as a whole, voted for her. And I, too, wanted to thank her for pulling together such a great group of politically, economically, racially diverse citizens to rally together for one cause, and that's for the effort to recall her, because she's such a disgrace and embarrassment to our fine city. And I will just close with one of her famous hashtags, "Come at me, bro." Well, Lemoore's coming at you.
Caroline Daly, 295 West Burlwood, and I am embarrassed by your behavior and how you speak. You can close your eyes at me, I don't care. But I personally have been here for a long time, and I've worked in this district. I know a lot of people here in Lemoore. I love this city, and I support our police chief, and I ask you to resign.
Connie Wolashin, 523 C Street, Lemoore. I wasn't going to say anything, but I have to. You guys have a hard decision to make and how you're going to censure Ms. Blair. So we need to figure out how you're going to do that. Are you going to, what kind of language are you going to use? Because it can't be personal. But I've known Ms. Blair for, I don't know, since 2014. And when she first came on the scene, I was very supportive. I thought, wow, this is a great young woman. This is a passionate stuff. And in the last year and a half, I have been on the receiving end of her stuff from Facebook. And if, you know, and I know that it's really hard, and it's like she's blocked me from her personal Facebook page, which is fine. But I can still see her page that says, Council Member, City of Lemoore. If she would just take that out of her title, nobody would give a damn, I'm sorry, about what she says. But when she puts up here that she's a council member, she's she's representing me. Well, I changed my mind, and I can change my mind. I am an adult, an old woman, which I've been called before. Thank you. And but I'm just terribly upset. You guys have to decide about, the innuendos and all of these unfounded threats and speeches that she does. You have to decide about, and it's not just, it's not just the one council member. You have to decide that this is going to go into your code of conduct. But I'm here to say that I am terribly embarrassed and upset that I ever supported her. And I'm going to ask you, if you are so pro Lemoore, that's very encouraging, her eating too, that's really professional. But I'm going to ask you to resign. If you are so concerned about the city of Lemoore and about where we're going, you need to resign. And if not, I have recall papers too that I need to sign. So.
Rich Tillman again. This is the most public speaking I've done in many years. I have a couple questions actually back towards you, because we keep talking about this and different concepts that Councilwoman Blair has posted, and that my fear to you as well is a lot of them has been directed to citizens, our great police chief, our city manager. At what point the comments, when she makes them under the title of city council member, which I agree with this gentleman, she has the right to her opinion, but once she starts selectively calling out people for races, for different parts of what they're doing, creating, when she has no idea that that's true or not, which we have confirmed on many occasions, that what she selectively puts down as truth is false. She puts in information and reluctantly puts information to the side that wasn't true. We've called her out on that many a times. But my thing is, what's the liability now to the city? Because how many times is it going to take for one of these citizens to get mad and it's going to come back in your lap? We're going to go back after the city because she's classifying herself as a city council member. Okay? So if you want to put wording in there, you better start putting wording in this censor so that it covers you as a council. Because at some point, the city is going to come back and come after the city for this. Thank you.
Somebody who embellishes. They want to improve a story by adding fictitious details. I feel Ms. Blair is very good at it. I've spoken about the speeding. I've spoken about running the red light, trying to blame somebody else. I was really annoyed by the fact that when Ms. Blair was served papers, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Blair, but when you were served papers for the recall, you were over at the parking lot where they were having a car sale by a taco stand on the sidewalk, and yet you decided to take a picture, I guess it's of the Virgin Mary. I'm not Catholic, no disrespect, but I guess it was a statue of the Virgin Mary. And I'm just curious why you didn't point out the other factors that were involved. That concerns me. When I'm finished, you can talk. That concerns me. We need somebody who's mature. We need somebody who has character. And you lack both. The maturity gene has not kicked in for you. I don't know why. I'm sorry. It's failed you. When you disrespect the police chief and the men and women that make it easy for me to go to bed at night and not worry about somebody, while you sit on your Facebook page and say the mayor's a misogynist with no backing as to why he is, when you call him a racist because he quoted something you wrote and you want to make him the bad person, I'm talking. That's wrong. When you insult the community that you are supposed to represent, you're missing the boat, ma'am, because they're not ignorant. And you're not the only one that has a degree, okay? So keep that in mind. So do us a favor, resign so we don't have to go through all that. Get the woman in you to do the right thing, okay?
Good evening. My name is Margarita Ochoa, resident of Lemoore. I would like to start with a sincere apology for the interactions with the police when you were, as you stated, a victim. I would like to kindly ask you to also rethink your allegations and the manner in which you publicize them. There are proper channels when reporting misconduct of an officer, and I could assure you that all allegations are taken very serious, investigated promptly in a legal and timely manner. You should also consider that the officer's reputation may become tarnished even if the allegations are found to be false. On another note, I would like to say that I am offended as the people you say you represent. A proud Latina, Mexican, Chicana, American, woman leader, educator, law enforcement officer, citizen of Lemoore, Catholic, daughter of an immigrant parent, daughter of a 67-year-old farm laborer, a registered Democrat, and as an educated woman. Yes, I too have a master's degree. You and I have so much more in common than you know, yet we are so different. You see, I have taken a different direction or approach. You choose to use the word victim when describing yourself. According to the California Penal Code, I too have been a victim. If you ask my childhood friends, they would consider me a survivor of gangs, drugs, and abuse. I made the decision a long time ago not to consider myself a victim nor a survivor, but a warrior with a cause, and that is to serve and protect those who cannot protect themselves. You see, growing up, I too was poor, as you say you were. Yet, I didn't know until I was older. My parents never let me know. They encouraged hard work, demanded respect, taught me to live with integrity and ethics, appreciate what we had or now have, and to help those who didn't. As a teenager, I grew up hating the police because my perception was just that, my perception that I was being harassed. It took me not being part of the problem, but becoming part of the solution to understand that perception is not always reality. So I would encourage you to do the same, be part of the solution and not the problem. Get to know the men and women of Lemoore Police Department. We all have a story. Although I have heard, I have read, I have seen many of your negative opinions and behaviors of how we do business at our department, I know those to be only your opinion. I don't think I need to explain that in our department, building relationships in our community is a priority. I think our actions speak louder than words. As a matter of fact, I recall a photo of you attending Coffee with a Cop and that function. Thank you for the partaking. And I know at the end of the day, no matter how you feel and the statements you make about us, that we will still take a bullet to protect you, because that is what we signed up to do, to serve and protect. I was told a long time ago that I would never make it very far because I had an opinion. I made it a point to have a voice for those who didn't. That did not stop me, but rather lit a fire under me. That is why I'm here today, asking that you reconsider the method of your delivery. You have a great platform. Use it for the betterment of those you represent. Our community deserves better. In the words of Mother Teresa, not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love. Thank you.
My name is Patricia Matthews. I live on 195 West Burlwood Lane. I'm terrified of public speaking. I might pass out if somebody catch me, but I feel that I need to speak. I am one of your constituents. I just want to say that you do not represent me. You do not have my full support. I've only got involved in this yesterday around 11 o'clock. I knocked on a lot of doors of your constituents. None of them knew who you were except for maybe 2 people. Everyone else that I talked to actually signed a petition. I believe you've been in office for maybe 2 years or so. I would think that maybe during that time you might have come and talked to your constituents. You'd like to post about how you do a lot of foot traffic and you're out there in the community. I haven't seen that in our district, and neither has anyone else that I've spoke to in our district. However, I do notice that you do put on your social media that you're walking another councilman's district for the sole purpose of unseating him, and specifically with a Democrat. For some reason, you think that that's important. I thought I had a conversation with you when you ran. I thought that you had explained to me that a council member is a nonpartisan position. However, that doesn't seem to be your motive or objective in filling council member seats. I ask personally for your resignation. You do not represent me. You do not represent a large number of people that I have spoke to, and I'll continue to knock on doors. Maybe I'll see you out there. Maybe I'll see you in another district. That's where your focus is. But I personally would like to ask for your resignation because you do not represent my district.
I talk a whole lot more than she does. I gotta admit, there are a lot of people that I see here that, as others have said, this has really kind of brought a lot of people together in Lemoore. And it's really sad that this is what's bringing people together. I mean, having this many people at a city council meeting, and seeing other people from the valley seeing what is going on because of one person and their attitude, their words, I just don't get it. As my wife said, she's followed along with this, but she hasn't got involved. And I feel that you, Ms. Blair, have had a huge opportunity for women, for, even though it's nonpartisan, for a Democrat to make a change, and from the name calling of people it seems as if you're called out on something, as opposed to coming back with more negativity that you could let it go. I mean, I see people of all ages, and it's just sad that this is happening. Again, I have to echo that I look towards your resignation.
Okay, seeing no other, okay.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jason Stevens. I'm speaking on my own behalf. I'm going to take the opportunity not to address anything regarding Ms. Blair directly or indirectly, but I did want to come up here to show my support of my chief and explain that how highly I hold him in regard. I was a Navy brat, but I graduated from Lemoore High. So when everyone asks where I'm from, I say Lemoore. I've been in the restaurant business for several years. I've been in the sales business for several years. Graduated some college, but after living my life as I did with my wife and 2 kids, I felt like I had a higher calling and wanting to help people. Thankfully, I brought it up to my wife, and she was in agreement that something was missing in our life. And at 34 years old, I decided to join the police academy. And at the other end, I met Chief Smith. And I'll tell you one thing, I've worked for a lot of managers, assistant managers, bosses, leaders of different versions and types, but there's no one I would rather go to battle with than Chief Smith. And I just want it to be known that the fact that any kind of character issues, morals, ethics, or any sorts of characteristics of those natures be brought into question on Mr. Olson's side or Chief Smith's side, I find pretty erroneous. So I just wanted to make sure I made it clear how I felt. I love Chief Smith. So, thank you.
Mr. Stevens, Mr. Stevens, Officer Stevens, can you come forward, please? I just want to ask you a question. So we've had 3 members of the police department come forward and speak very highly of the department and the chief. Do you know of any members in the department that would disagree with what you 3 have said?
Absolutely not. And it's because of Chief Smith that I can say that with full confidence and honesty, because he's created the culture in the department that we work for, and I don't think you would find an answer in that department that would say they would have it any other way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christine King. I would just like to say that I am part of the recall for Holly Blair. As I went around to different neighborhoods and had people sign the petition, it was brought to my attention that a lot of noise and shenanigans are being brought up. However, in our neighborhood, we're having break-ins. We've had my neighbor Bruce Hotchkiss broken into. My neighbor Coach Bob Clement was broken into. And they want to know why those issues are not being addressed. Why are we having all of these things happening that we're talking about recalling Holly Blair, when those are things that need to be brought up. Everyone that I spoke to, and everyone was in agreement. We have high regards with our mayor, high regards to our chief of police. We had a break-in in April. When I called 911, the police were there in under 60 seconds in my neighborhood. And so I feel that the focus needs to be more on our safety, our roads, our children, keeping people safe. And I'm not sure if Ms. Blair has read the book Vanished in Broad Daylight. I'm not sure if you were even a resident here when that happened with Maria Pasano in 1995. So I just wanted to quote, retired Kings County Sheriff Officer Detective Mark Bingaman when he said, "Titles do not make the men, men make the titles." Thank you.
Okay, looks like there's no more public comment. So I'm going to bring it back to the council for discussion. So we do have a difficult decision and a process. Not only do we have to decide whether or not there's going to be a censor, but what form, if we decide that, for what reason. So I'm opening up to discussion and comment from all of you and decide what we're going to do here.
For one, I support the censor, and for the following reasons, and I wrote them out. And I've already brought them up before. But on April 10th, I asked the council to place on the agenda to discuss the conduct of Councilmember Holly Blair and possible censure. This item was placed on the April 17th council agenda. Items of concern discussed at this meeting were as follows. And I'm not going to go into all the details because I already submitted that documentation for the record. But these were the reasons why. These are the reasons why I felt that I have concern. The implied threats concerning several Lemoore Police Department traffic stops to the Lemoore Police Chief Darrell Smith. And that was concerning that email and other things. And all that documentation is already submitted for record. Threat of further discussion with the city manager or council if resolution was not found concerning the Lemoore Police Department traffic stops. Once again, talking about those traffic stops, and if resolution wasn't found, they were going to go further. Comments made via social media using your official title as Holly Blair, Council Member, City of Lemoore. You have your First Amendment rights, but when you're, as a council member, I feel that you're representing the entire city, and your comments, and even my comments, and the other council members' comments, we're representing the people of Lemoore. I take this position very seriously. I work for you, okay? And if you say that I'm wrong, let me know, and I'll apologize to you. But I really do feel this way. It's sad. I don't like doing this. Comments via social media concerning our senior citizens and other attending manager roundtable meetings. Once again, that's all on public testimony. That's on Facebook. That's been recorded. Councilmember Blair, abuse of power as a council member. I think these items are abuse of her power. Email from Councilmember Blair. This was submitted for public record on that same April 17th April 17th. Email from Councilmember Blair while acting as elected position as a chair of the Kings County Democratic Party, signing the email as chair, Kings County Democratic Central Committee, but also signing this as council member, City of Lemoore. We're a nonpartisan organization here. We represent everybody. Intimidation, disrespect, and bullying of certain citizens of Lemoore during council meetings. I'll just leave that go. Now, from April 17th till today, during the July 17th, 2018 council meeting, Councilmember Blair questioned the relationship between the city manager and the chief police concerning their kids dating and issues of nepotism. Councilmember Blair asked for consensus of council to hire an independent investigator to look into this matter. Councilmember discussed the issue and found her claim. Council discussed the issue and found her claim to have no merit, and we did not agree with her accusations. I have repeatedly asked for proof with no results. I keep asking, show me the proof, show me the money, show me something. All I get, I don't get anything. These actions hurt our cities and discredits our city and our police department. The chief police asked Councilmember Blair to please stop with these actions. To date, there has only been verbal statements from you with no proof of a conspiracy. Since then, Councilmember Blair has continued her attack on the chief of police, city manager, and the mayor on social media and television, latest Channel 24, stating there is a conspiracy against her from these individuals. This is hurting our city. We got better things to do. We got economic development. We got to roll up our sleeves and get to work. Wastewater, water. Once again, economic development, infrastructure. We have to get this. This is what the people expect us to do. Not spend our time. And this hurts our city. I feel it hurts our city. And I don't hate you. I just want it to stop. I just want it to stop. So these are the reasons for censure that I see. I'll submit this for record. And I'm asking for written censure.
I guess it's my turn. I don't have any written notes. I'm going to just speak from my heart, and it's hard. Don't like saying it. But we all know. It doesn't have to be repeated. I want to keep it short. But when there's false accusations made to some of the most respected members of our community, and basically those have tarnished the integrity and the character of some of these people, your moral, Ms. Blair, your moral and ethic behavior, it does not represent anybody I know in this town. Not one person. Our city is proud, our city is great, and what you've done to scar it is absolutely terrible. You're a liability to our city right now, and you're hurting economic development. People don't want to come here because of our council. We need to have more positive things happen in our city, and we need this to stop. This is ridiculous. I really don't know what else to say, but this is a great town. We don't deserve you. I don't know why you'd want to stay on this council. I think it stops right here tonight, and you end it and get off the council and do it on your own merit and do the right thing.
How you guys doing? I see. It's hot in here. I don't know if it's because of my jacket or I can feel heat out there right now. Anyway, I want to say it's trying time right now. We're dealing with trying time. We had two tragedies in Kings County. I'm not just saying it, just be saying it. I mean, I don't like saying we have bigger fish to fry, but I also said the Bible speaks of answer a fool according to their folly. If we're going to sit back and speak on foolish things when we know our city is not a foolish city. I know Chief is a great man. I know we have a great police department. I know we have great citizens here. It's a lot of times I got my feelings hurt, but I didn't put it on display. I'm from Lemoore. I went to Lemoore Elementary, born and raised. My family came from here all the way back from the 40s. I mean, this is where I am. And I'm not going to cry over spilled milk. I don't agree with nothing that was put on our police department. I said that too. It's on record. I also said around 8 years ago, 7 years ago, the council before this, I tried to put a censor in place. Councilman Brown was around when I tried to put one in place before because I seen this coming. Well, we could have got sued many times. I feel bad for the community. I feel bad because it puts us in a rock and a hard place. I think we got great council members. I think she, on the other hand, she dropped the ball. I'm not speaking of her. I'm speaking of all of us. We were growing, we were going the right direction for a long time. I was posting on Facebook all the time. What were we doing? we're growing. We got Dollar Generals. We have different stores that are opening up. We're doing big things, but at the same time, here we are stuck on stupid, listening to the stupidity that is coming out. And I ain't gonna lie, I seen Dave Brown, Councilman Dave Brown. He tried to give chance after chance. We tried to work. We tried. I'm embarrassed. I just want to let everybody know I'm not for putting down our police department. I'm not. And then we can flip the script. We can flip the door swings both ways. I'm for supporting our fire department as well. And so I'm for all of Lemoore, not just part of Lemoore. We might be districts now, but I'm for all Lemoore. And I'm sorry that this took place. I'm sorry that you guys are a nervous wreck right now. You guys dealt with a lot of things. We had 2 deaths that came about. I just came from 2 funerals, and it was a sad time. Although I seen all my friends that I graduated with from MIQ, Lemoore Elementary, Central Union, Middle Lane, PW involved. And it's just, we need to stick together in this trying time. And yes, I agree with censoring her quick with a hurry. And at the same time, I can do this. I can put myself out there. You guys don't have to put yourself out there. You can even censor me. I mean, I want to be held accountable for anything I do too. You know, I want to be where, let all the council be accountable for things that they do. Because sometimes we feel that I'm not knocking her. She don't think before she speak on certain things. She goes out there and she goes at it. She's going to tell you, you can't be like that. And another thing is, if you go into politics, when you're elected official, you got to have thick skin too. You got to know when people are going to call you all kinds, you're going to get celebrated, but then you're going to get denigrated at the same time. That goes for the police department. That goes for all of us. You know, the Bible says he ran on the just as well as the unjust. So I'm just saying this. I censor her, and if you want to put a censor on me, you could do the same for me as well. I'm just saying I want to be held accountable. God bless.
Ms. Blair. Okay. So I think it's pretty obvious how you all feel about it. We do really take public comment into consideration when we make our decisions. It's not always this clear how the public feels, but today it's enormously clear that the public doesn't feel as though Ms. Blair represents them. They certainly don't agree with her behavior, her conduct, her comments towards the police department, and on social media. I've been asked many, many times lately, how did Ms. Blair ever get on the council? And I just don't know how to respond sometimes, but I will tell you this. I knew long before she was on the council that something like this was going to happen. I didn't vote for her. She asked me for an endorsement a long time ago, and I said no. I didn't know her as well as I know now. But it's sad that it was predictable. I don't believe that her conduct here on the council, in the public, on television, is becoming of a council member. We have rules of conduct. We have a code of conduct, rules and procedures. Though that code of conduct was in long before Ms. Blair was on the council, not just before she got on the council. We did put in Lemoore City Council rules of procedure when she said, but the code of conduct was there well before that. And I know that because I was the one that brought it forward. We didn't have one at the time. And I asked that we put one on. So that was a couple of years ago. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Madam Clerk, is Ms. Blair the only one of us council members that has not signed that code of conduct still?
Correct.
So we've talked about that before. Yes, she has not signed that code of conduct. And her response has been, well, I'm not going to tell you what her response is, but our response has been, that doesn't mean that you're not still bound by it. Signing it or not signing it. It doesn't mean that you're not bound by it. So the other day, some of you, I'm sure a lot of you, saw that interview on Channel 24 Sunday morning. I got it, I think, about 2 minutes after it aired, and I was able to watch it. And that was, I guess, just very, very typical. We have had a discussion about Ms. Blair's conduct in April. I didn't bring that forward. That was brought forward by Mr. Brown. If you heard that interview, she claimed that I brought it forward. She also claimed that the reason for the harassment by the police was because she didn't vote to make our city manager the full-time city manager. Now, she was not the only one that didn't vote for that. Mr. Neal didn't vote for that either. But I haven't heard him complain of harassment by the police. So I think that can be disregarded. There was other things that were said on that interview, but that's just a small piece of it. I don't even know where to start, to be honest with you, as far as what the censor should say or where it should say. I mean, every single page I look at this rules of procedures, I could find a specific violation based upon her behavior. I'm just going to read a couple things that I do want to enter into the record and make them hopefully part of the reason why we're censoring her. This is on, I think it's your Facebook page, Ms. Blair. Holly Andrade Blair, council member, City of Lemoore. It says, what a difference it makes when you have a good being all caps, leadership in a city, and officers are allowed to build trust within their community instead of growing fear. Hashtag, it starts at the top, hashtag, out of touch leader needs to go, leaders need to go, hashtag, I support a lip sync challenge in Lemoore. So I think we've heard from the police department. That's been specifically refuted. I would say that probably no one over there believes that they don't have good leadership. So I would like that in there to show blatant dishonesty. I don't know how else to put it. I don't know what else to call it. I won't use that term, but there are many instances of comments that Ms. Blair had made about me, about all of us council members that I've seen, and many that you have not seen, degrading us, calling us names, simply because we disagree with her on certain things. Here's another one that I want to read and would like to make part of the record. Another Holly Andrade Blair, council member, City of Lemoore. You can threaten me all you want, but I will not remain silent. I have an obligation, in all caps, to tell the public all that I know. I suppose the best way to do that will be to take everything I know and host a conversation here on social media. Let's put it all out there and let the public decide, ? I'm working on a public post now. Expect a full statement by morning. That was July 19th at 5:06 p.m., and I don't think there's been a full statement since. I think the public has spoken today. I think they have decided what they want to do. Ms. Blair, on many occasions, refers to her constituents. People have come to me and said this or said that. They have a certain opinion. And I began to question that a while ago, and I asked her to give me the names of the people that are telling you that. Not because I wanted to bring them out in public, but because I wanted to ask them some questions. Because I don't trust Ms. Blair's, what she says any longer. I don't trust that she twists what people tell her. I don't trust that she twists what she tells people so that they will give a certain response. So I feel that she's become a very ineffective council member. Like I said, I don't really know where we should start on a technical point of view as far as what we want to do. I know that Ms. Blair did bring up a disciplinary matter in public about an employee of this city, which we don't do. We don't talk about disciplinary matters in public. Those are discussions that we have in closed session. So that's a blatant violation. Not only that, Chief Smith is also protected by something called the Peace Officers Bill of Rights. And that's obviously been violated as well. So you're right, we have to protect our city. The only thing we can do tonight is censure Ms. Blair. The rest of it is up to you, I guess. Just like when people ask me, how did Ms. Blair ever get elected? I still don't know how. But I do know that here today, I think I would venture to say some of you in here voted for Ms. Blair, but I'm certainly, I think I would be confident to say that none of you would vote for her today. So as far as the censure and how we're going to, the mechanics of all that, I think maybe we should have some more discussion here tonight with our city attorney, but I am definitely in favor of a censure. And Ms. Blair, I would also ask, in all sincerity, because I think you are going to be completely ineffective for the rest of the term. And I think to do the right thing for the public, for the people of Lemoore, to save us from a recall, to save us the cost of a recall, because there will be a cost. I will tell you that. There will be a cost that the city has to pay. But if enough people sign the recall petition, we are bound by law to bring that forward for an election. So, Ms. Blair, you say you care about this city. I would really ask today that you resign immediately, effective today.
Okay, so ready to make the comment now?
Hold on, I'm not done.
The main difference between me being
Ms.
up
Blair,
here.
I'm not done.
All right.
Thank you. So, you've heard all of us here tonight. This is probably the most resounding, like many of you have said, people from all facets and aspects of our city have come together. Probably would disagree on many things, but today you're all united because of this. And it is sad that it's because of this. We have so many more important things to do. We are desperately trying to think of ways and bring businesses to our city to generate revenue, economic development, and developers, people that are willing to invest their money in our city, because that's what they're doing. They're taking a chance when they come here. They invest their money in our city. They want to know that we have a stable council, a council that is rational, that is fair, that considers things in a manner where they are open to all sides of the question, and then ultimately make a decision. I have not seen, in 4 years, I've not seen this much unity on a subject matter that's come before us. So I just, like I said, this is all we can do is censor Ms. Blair. The rest is going to be up to you. I just hope we don't have to do that. Thank you.
The main difference right now is that I had a vote on this council. So therefore, there was a motivation to intimidate me where there wouldn't be any of you. And none of this had anything to do with my social media. I was already on the agenda for breaking this code of conduct after I sent a text message, actually it wasn't an email, asking what's up with the last pullover, asking for a video of it. And you're right, I did go to Coffee with a Cop. I spent the last 2 years trying to build good relationships. I went to every event. I went to the National Night Out last year. I tried to build a good relationship. And every step of the way, I was lied to. I was intimidated. And it got worse when I wouldn't vote the way that I was expected to vote. And that's what this is all about. And I don't care if you censor me. I really don't. Because I'm not going to shut up about it. Period.
Chief Smith, would you like to make a comment, Chief Smith?
So I'm going to keep it legal tonight. Last meeting you heard me make a statement, and that statement was probably a lot of things that everyone in the community, not everyone, but the majority of our community wanted to say. And I said them because they're all true. I will make a comment that Ms. Blair is afforded the luxury of due process. And this agenda tonight was very clear that you would discuss her actions as a council member, not as a citizen, because there's a difference between her making a comment at this podium versus her making a comment as a citizen or as a council member. I'm an employee of the city. Mayor, as you correctly pointed out, I'm an employee afforded personnel rules and regulation and certain rights. My officers are also afforded those certain rights. So I'm not going to hold the trial here tonight, but if I did, all the people in this audience would probably vote in favor to convict Ms. Blair. I'll leave it at that. But what I will point out is I will defend my officers here tonight because, number one, I'm going to point out I believe she just violated the Brown Act. And I say that because I'm afforded government code section tells me that if me or any other employee of the city is brought up in a council meeting in this agenda, I have to be notified 24 hours in advance. I did not receive that notification. I love this city. This city is subjecting themselves to liability by having her on the council. And I am very proud of our community tonight that they came forward to tell exactly how dissatisfied they are with representation from Ms. Blair. So again, I point out that I just want council to be very, very, I don't want you to be careful because be careful is a term that is used loosely in many ways, and I don't think it will apply to all of you. I'll leave it at that. But what I will say is that my officers are afforded due process rights, and I'm not going to sit up here and listen to people make accusations when there's a process in place. Everything that she said can be checked. There's a record that indicates how many times we pulled her over. There's also a statement that she made that was incorrectly stated as to how many times we pulled her over. So I don't use the L word either, Mr. Mayor, so I will say that it's not accurate information that she actually put out there. She also made some implied threats to me in my position in those text messages that were all subjected to you under record. So again, I just want to point out that I wasn't afforded the same due process, nor was any of my officers on the Lemoore Police Department afforded the same due process as Councilmember Blair. And I would ask that you respect the process because that's what it's for. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would also like to let the council know that Chief Smith ran for county supervisor and is listed as a politician on his social media. He's a public figure who is also ran for supervisor in my supervisional district.
Blair, please.
This is politically motivated.
No, that's not true. Please, Ms. Blair.
He sure can.
Ms. Blair, keep.
He did. I'm just making a statement to the council so that we're all aware that he's a public figure, and I have a First Amendment right.
The Chief Smith is here as an employee of this city. So that's how we will address in that manner. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Ms. Blair?
Yes, I'd also like to point out that Chief Smith had an attorney send me a cease and desist letter, which was absolutely crazy because it completely violated the First Amendment rights that I have and my obligation as an elected to make these points known to the public. And since you have an employee who is issuing attorney threats to our council, not just me, to our council, I would like to know why he wasn't placed on administrative leave until that was sorted out. Again, that would be a violation of the First Amendment.
Council, I would instruct council to refrain from talking about personnel matters in open session.
Thank you. So, okay, hold on, please. Point of order, please. Thank you.
Tom Reed, 1064 Avenue, Lemoore. I think what we have is we've gone downhill in this discussion. And I think no matter how you feel one way or the other, we need to end that discussion. The council decide if you're going to do a censure, what that format will be. But what we're doing right now is not accomplishing anything. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Van Binsbergen, would you like to comment on this discussion and any suggestions that how we should proceed?
So, council, I have a couple options for council. You can proceed, as I indicated, I would need consensus from council that there's would like to move forward with a censure. As I've heard from a couple council members, it appears that there is a consensus to move forward with a written censure, which would require staff, myself and staff, to prepare a resolution to be brought back. In order to do that, while I've written down some comments that people have said regarding the topics for censure, I think it needs to be a little bit more specific. Mayor Madrigal, you mentioned the council rules of conduct and that there were a number of, and I'm paraphrasing what you said, but there were a number of items in those rules that you felt had been violated. Now, we can sit here tonight and go through those, which would be a very exhaustive process. Or, since I am tasked with drafting the resolution, each of the council members could elect to have a process where they send me a list of confidential, identify the rule, law, or other item, policy that has been violated, and provide specific facts to me in a confidential memo, which can be provided by approximately, set a timeline, but basically approximately next week to give me time to prepare the resolution. That resolution would then be prepared, served on Ms. Blair, and at the following council meeting, it would be available to the public as well, can be then discussed more specifically and voted upon at that time. I would ask for a motion.
Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to basically what the city attorney has said, that we will provide confidential memo to her with the specific codes of conduct sections that we think that have been violated and supporting evidence to go with that, and then she will draft a censure for us to consider at the next meeting. Do I have a motion for that?
Before we do, I'd like to say something. Ms. Blair, is this something you want to put our city through? You're going to, but what I'm saying is, look what you're doing to the community. I'm asking you, do we need to go through all of this and have you still sit here and take it? I just don't understand why you're going to go through with a recall. No, I'm not saying, no, I am saying everybody has said what they have said. And for you to continue to want the recall, want the censor, I don't understand it. We've all asked you to step down. Why won't you do that?
If you don't want me to be here,
Right?
2020, and then go run an election, because we have a process. It's called an election. You don't like how I was elected. You don't like that I was elected. I get it. A lot of people don't.
It's not how you were elected, it's how you're behaving. And what you're doing to the great people of this city is wrong. You should not be here. I hate to say it. I don't want to have to go through all this, is what I'm trying to say. Don't you understand where I'm coming from? No, I don't want to recall your censure. I'd like to have you step down.
Okay, so obviously Ms. Blair is not going to resign. So let's get back to make a motion, Mr. Brown.
I'd like to make a motion to follow the steps that was stated earlier on the censor, the procedure of the censor, and does that give you enough information?
Yeah, I would ask that you set a timeline, so tonight's Tuesday, 1 week for each council member to provide a document to me.
We figure out a date, to give us a date on a calendar. Anybody got a calendar?
It's the
What's
14th.
August 14th.
August 14th.
By email. Confidential to me only.
Confidential to you only. Are reasons why we feel we have reason for censure, and then statement to back up.
Correct.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Brown and a second by Mr. Chedister. Mr. Brown?
Aye.
Mr. Chedister?
Aye.
Mr. Neal? Ms. Blair? And I vote aye. Motion is passed. Okay, thank you everyone for your input. So we will go ahead and move on to the last item on the agenda, which is City Council reports and requests. Ms. Blair.
So I have two little ones starting MIQ tomorrow, so everybody please maintain your speeds going down the main street, please. And I am a crossing guard for MIQ as well, so yes, I am out there, and I was out there doing a fundraiser when and people stepped onto church grounds to hand me that letter. That's what that statue was about. I also have three other children in 4 other schools and going this next week, and I would hope that everybody enjoys their upcoming school year.
The only thing I got to report out, because we as council members do go to different boards and meetings and stuff. So I attended the Kings County Economic Development Commission or Corporation Board last month. I've submitted for record some of the things that that Kings EDC is looking at for Kings County, and some of these things are for Lemoore or industrial parks. For the Kings or Business Industry Park in Lemoore, there's some hydrogen manufacturing. There's a construction products manufacturer, some other things. So if you want, this is going to be set for record, so you can go back to the to our website and you can look at this. And then there's also a chart in there on where Kings EDC also gives out agricultural loans, land fund loans, and economic development administrative loans for businesses to start up. So with those, it shows that they did make loans to Lemoore, Hanford, Corcoran, and Armona. So what I'm bringing this up is because we're talking about economic development, things of that nature. This is good for our city. I attended the CART meeting, the CART bus meeting. I have nothing to report out on that, and then the Groundwater Sustainment Act meeting. I have nothing to report out on that. So
no report.
I want you guys to stay mindful about our ex-mayor and Joe Avila. Keep their families in prayer. This is trying time for them. And I'm not going to never forget, although we didn't see eye to eye on certain politics, I loved my school little boy all my life. I broke his collarbone. He always would give me a hard time about that. And Pop Warner. That was me and Billy. Me and Billy had some great times, great memories when I went to the funeral. I'm seeing Gary Leisure, Norman Lassard, excuse me, not Gary Leisure, but Norman Lassard. I seen the Bachmeyers. I just want to call out all the names, Chanel, all of them. It was a great time seeing all of them, not at a bad time, but it was good seeing everybody. And then when I went to the fairgrounds, it was a great time seeing the Avilas, seeing all the great people there. And just all I'm saying is, you know, life's too short. And just remember that, because we're here one day and we're going the next. God bless.
Thank you. I'd just like to compliment and thank the police department and everyone else that was involved for National Night Out event today at Heritage Park. I think that was the best one that we've had yet. I really appreciate all the work that went into that. I know there's a lot of work in the background to make such an event like that. We had so many people out there. We've done it a little differently in the past where they were done at individual homes that people had volunteered to do. But I really hope that we can continue to do it this way. I think we just got so much really good exposure about our police department, our fire department. Everybody that was out there was having a great time. They even did film part of the lip sync challenge out there. Somebody asked me to go out there and dance, but I said no. You guys, I think the camera would get broken or something, so I just stayed in the background and clapped. But that was really neat how you guys all did that. Bring some positive awareness to our city, which is what we need right now. So thank you. That's all I have. Good night.